Okay, welcome everybody to the Advocacy and Using Your Voice session. My name is Lindsay Gafford and I am moderating today's session. I just want to bring a few things to your attention before we get started. This session is going to be audio recorded. You can ask questions throughout, so if you have a question, just go ahead and raise your hand. And let's see. I want to introduce the speaker for today, which is Kelly Lange from METAvivor. Kelly was diagnosed with breast cancer at age 32, and she was diagnosed as metastatic in
14 years ago.
14. This woman has been living with metastatic for 14 years.
Wow.
She has served as the grants coordinator, the vice president, the president, and the treasurer secretary. So she's had a lot of roles with METAvivor and has worked in Washington, D.C. and in her home state of Maryland to advocate for women with metastatic disease. So I want to welcome Kelly to the floor, and let's just give her a round of applause.
Thank you. So yes, I was a young survivor a long time ago. I'm happy to still be here. I was diagnosed stage 1 22 years ago next month, and 14 years metastatic, and I'm so fortunate that I'm doing well. We're trying very hard to make sure that everybody gets that many years metastatic. So first I want to ask, how many are not metastatic in the room today? Okay, great, thank you. This would be very relevant to you as well. So I want to talk today about first political advocacy. That's something that is very important to us all. And then at the end, we'll talk about some other ways you can advocate in different areas. So to start off, you have to realize that your representatives really care what you think. They are constantly running for office. Congress is reelected every 2 years. Your senators are reelected every 6 years, and they pay attention to your phone calls and your letters, and especially your visits. And it really matters that you reach out and establish a relationship with your congressional delegation because they really care what you think. And you have a lot of experience to bring to the table. There are a lot of misconceptions about breast cancer. People think we've solved the problem. We know we haven't solved the problem. We continue to lose 41,000 women and men in America every day, or every year, one every 15 minutes. And, there's a lot that people just don't realize. We haven't moved the needle in certain ways. A lot of people think we've solved the problem. So you can educate them about the realities of living with early stage and late stage breast cancer. You really are an expert in this, and they value your opinion. And this works. We've been working ever since the repeal and replace has been on the table. METAvivor and other organizations have been working to advocate for the 4 pillars, we call them. And we join with some other organizations for a unified message on the 4 pillars. So the pre-existing condition exclusion, the lifetime cap, reasonable copays, and the 26-year-old child on the policy thing. And recently, one of our advisors in DC sent us an email and said, the reason those things are in Affordable Care Light, or Junior as they're calling it, is because the advocacy groups really got the word out that this was so important to them. So it really does make a difference when they hear from you. So some of the issues we're working on, METAvivor nationally has 3 legislative goals this year. Obviously, whatever's going to replace the Affordable Care Act, we want to make sure all of us are covered and our cancer is covered. We know how expensive it is. Right to try. So the right to try legislation is also, there's a state effort and there's a federal effort. And basically this legislation expands the compassionate use care program so that if a drug has been through phase 1 safety testing and you are terminally ill and your doctor thinks that it's something that might be useful to you, then the federal government can't, the FDA can't prohibit you from getting that drug. So the other thing that's a big thing for us is increased funding at NIH for cancer research, specifically metastasis research. There are a lot of state issues as well. In particular, many insurance regulations are done at the state level. So chemotherapy parity, for example, is something that's an issue in some states. I know we worked on it in Maryland and got it passed. And that legislation says that if your insurance company covers chemotherapy infusions in an infusion center at your doctor's office, they also have to cover oral chemotherapies that you take at home at the same level. So that would be under your medical plan, not under your pharmacy plan, because the copays are different, right? So different deductibles, different copays, and we all know how much those great new drugs that are oral cost, and how that can affect your pocket. So step therapy is another one that's been an issue in some states, and that's where insurance companies want you to try certain drugs first before you try this one that might be more effective but is more expensive, and they want you to do them in a certain order, which maybe you and your doctor have already thought about, but in some cases if you change insurance companies, they want you to do those again. And if it didn't work before, it's not going to work now. So the step therapy issue is on the table in some states. And again, right to try, there's a state level effort so that it's being passed in states for insurance regulations there, but also at the federal level. And then one that METAvivor hasn't taken a stand on, but a lot of people feel strongly about is medical aid in dying, which is also it's an effort at the state level. So that was passed here in California. It did not make it through in Maryland, my home state, this year. Some others that you might be interested in, particularly if you're early stage, and that is oncofertility preservation, where you want to get your embryos or your eggs saved and having insurance cover that. Medicaid is a state issue that you might get involved in. And then there's some others that are a little that you might not think about, but that you might care about. Some environmental issues, and also regulation of additives in beauty products and consumer products. We don't have a lot of evidence about what causes breast cancer, but we all have a lot of thoughts and opinions about toxins and things in our environment that may have contributed to our situation. And perhaps this is an issue that's close to your heart that you want to get involved in. So those are some of the things that you can work on in your advocacy. So you want to choose one of those that you're really passionate about, because that's going to make your message stronger, and it's going to give you, it can be frustrating, and you can have delays, and you might have to go back year after year. And so if you really care about it, you'll have the stamina to keep after it. And then, choose when you do it too. Certain things just aren't going to fly at certain times. In Maryland, we had 71 new delegates this year, and the sponsor of the medical aid in dying that I worked on said, these guys, nobody does this in their first year. They won't vote for it in their first year. So he pulled it and said, we're not going to waste everybody's time. So that was disappointing, but you just got to keep getting the message out and educating them until they agree with you. So, right now in DC, we have a Republican everything, and that's an opportunity, because cancer is bipartisan. So you have to identify those opportunities and look for what you think you can make happen now, given the political climate that we have. And certainly there's compromise. There's no such thing as perfect legislation. The 21st Century Cures Act, our advisors gave it a C, because of a lot of, it covers a lot of stuff. And if you watched Elizabeth Warren's video, you would have thought this was the worst thing that we had ever done. And she had some good points to make, but at the same time, it did a lot of good things too. So you're not going to get everything you want exactly the way you want it, but perhaps you can make things better. So everything certainly is political. We were very disappointed with the federal right to try, which was introduced by a Republican delegation, and it was completely shot down by the Democrats, which didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, except it's political. And that's the way it is, and you just got to work within those parameters and try and get your message out. Okay, so once you choose your battle and you decide the time is right, you want to figure out what you really want to ask for. So if you're asking them, it might be to support certain legislation. It might be, maybe you want them to co-sponsor certain legislation. Or it could be something else. Like, for example, we did some work last fall where we wanted congresspeople and senators to sign on to a letter that we wanted Congress to send to NIH to tell us, to report back how much money is being spent on metastasis research. And we defined that for them because, as you know, METAvivor has a very focused definition of metastasis research. So, we drafted the letter for them, and we said, would you please sign this and sponsor it and send it to NIH? And of course, the more people you get to sign, both parties, both houses, the more effective that letter is. So, and that's something that, they'll do. They want to help you with that if that's something that's important to you. So, that's part of our strategy. You get the letter, get them to sign it, get the information back from NIH and say, okay, NIH, look how much you're spending on metastasis. We need to do better. So, we have this multi-step plan ongoing to try and get more research into metastasis. So, I didn't change the slide. I'm looking at the wrong thing. There we go. So you want to pick the things that you want to ask for. Be specific. This legislation, this letter, make it easy for them if you can by writing the letter for them. Of course, they can tweak it if they want. And then you want a leave behind message. And what is it that you want them to remember and take forward? And you have to really spell it out because sometimes they just don't get it. They don't see it the way you see it. So you really have to make it clear and basic and focused for them. Okay, find the other stakeholders. So depending on the issue, there are going to be a lot of people already looking at it. For example, with the right to try, the ALS community is extremely involved. We've been involved a lot with metastatic cancer research. With the Aid in Dying, Compassion and Choices is the leading organization. So they have resources, they have plans in place that you may or may not sign on to, but they can tell you what the issues are, and they're going to have a lot of materials on their websites about it. So you can leverage what these organizations have already done and bring it to your advocacy, or maybe join up with them if that's what you want to do. All right, so once you've figured out your asks and your leave behind message and your issue, schedule a meeting. You really can just call up and say, I want to meet with my representative. You're likely going to meet with staff, but that's okay because they're the ones who really do all the work anyway. They know the position of their representative, their boss, and they know what they can take to him or her and what they can't, and you can convince them to take a message to them. You can say, we think he will be interested in this because X, Y, Z. You also don't have to go to DC to do this because they will meet you. They have staff in their home states as well. So you can potentially not travel and meet in your hometown. Prepare your materials to leave behind. Again, the things that you identified, what you want them to do, your key message, get it all together with supporting materials. Maybe you've got some editorials you found or a blog post you've written, or maybe a position statement from another organization such as the AMA or some other group that has a position that agrees with yours. You can include all that in a folder to leave behind with contact information for yourself your meeting is probably going to be about 30 minutes, so you have to really be focused. You have to educate them on the issue, why it's important to you, how it makes a difference in your life, and how tell your story to make it personal. So, they really respond to the things that are concrete about why this matters. If it's chemotherapy parity, it's clear. I had to pay X for this drug because it wasn't covered the same way. It's not like I can take a pill instead of an infusion because it's more convenient. That's not what this is about. And some of them think that, right? They think, oh, you're just taking the pill because you don't want to go in and get the needle. Well, no, they don't understand. So you have to educate them. You know way more about it than they do. So tell your story and tell it in a way that really indicates how this legislation affects your life. If you don't know something, they might ask you what the budgetary impact is. Say, you know what? I don't know that. I think this is important, but perhaps I can find out and get back to you on that. And that's okay. It's okay to say you don't know something. They don't expect you to be a legislative expert. Your role in this is to tell them your story and why this matters to you. Get cards for everyone you meet because you're going to have to follow up with them. And don't forget to leave your package. I can't tell you how many times I've walked out with the package and I'm like, oh, and I had to go back and give it to them. So make sure you leave your package for them with all your materials in it. Yes?
By cards, do you mean their personal business cards, or do you mean send thank you cards?
Well,
or?
yeah, both.
Okay.
Both. Yeah, they all have business cards, and they love to hand them out, and you want them. So it will have their email address, their phone number, and their title. So those are all important things. After the meeting, you're going to want to follow up. Email is really one of the best things you can do. Your grandma might want to write a letter, but paper letters are screened now after that anthrax scare. It takes a lot longer to get them in. So, email is just a lot more efficient. If your grandma writes a letter, take a picture and send it in. So when you email follow-up after the meeting, you want to repeat your key messages, what you want them to remember and your asks. And if you can, address any of those outstanding questions or tell them you're working on it. Avoid paper. And then ask for a decision. Are you going to do this? Will you support this or won't you? And if yes, absolutely say thank you. If not, ask why not. And remember, you're in charge. They are working for you. So they should give you an answer, and you should be able to demand one because they work for you. So you may have to be persistent, but it really does matter. Okay, you can enlist the help of all your family and friends, of course. So especially if they're not agreeing with you and you need to give them a little convincing, you can certainly get people to contact your representatives on your behalf. You can suggest language for them to use, make it easy for them to do it. I will say that they respond more if it is a personalized message, but if the only way somebody's going to send it in is, you give them the email address and you give them the text of the email, that's fine, because it really does matter the volume and how often they hear and what they're hearing. So if you are able to do some guest blogging somewhere about the issue, write editorials, obviously share everything on social media to get the word out and get people involved and get more people talking to their representatives, all that pressure is going to make a difference, just like it did with those 4 pillars in the ACA replacement. So it really does matter. Okay, so I've talked a lot about what you can do politically, but there are a lot of other things you can do to advocate as well. And one of them is being a scientific research advocate, and there are a lot of opportunities here as well. Are you guys familiar with NBCC's Project LEAD? It is a fabulous, fabulous training course that really gets into the science of breast cancer. Yes?
I'm a Project LEAD graduate. I'm just going to give a plug. It's awesome, and they're accepting applications now.
That's right. I have the website on my laptop. I wanted to make sure everybody is aware that they are accepting applications now. It sometimes takes a couple years to get in. Tuition is free, but you do have to get out to San Diego for the 4 or 5 days of training, and it's in depth. They bring in fabulous lecturers, and you learn a lot of the science. And you can apply that in your work as an advocate. The DoD CDMRP program, do you guys know what that is? So the National Breast Cancer Coalition, NBCC, years ago, went to the DoD and said, we're going to raise some money, and we're going to make Congress pay you to fund this research, and we want you to do peer-reviewed research for breast cancer, all stages for breast cancer. And so the CDMRP was created, the Congressionally Directed Medical Research Program, and the first disease they looked at was breast cancer. So what they do is they solicit proposals, Congress funds it, they solicit proposals, and then they assemble peer review panels, which include patient advocates who have an equal voice at the table. And your role as a patient advocate in reviewing the research proposal is to evaluate its impact on the breast cancer community. And it's really empowering when you can sit in the room, and as an advocate, you can change the direction of the conversation about that research, because you can say, you know what, guys, that may be really snazzy, but it's not going to help us much. Whereas this one really would help us a lot more if that were successful. So METAvivor this year is adding research patient advocates to our research review panels as well. So it's a really great way to make sure the most impactful research is being funded. There's also the AACR Scientist Survivor Program. That's a great program. And they bring advocates to their annual meetings, and there's a lot of opportunity there to do your own science for breast cancer. And then as you work in these arenas, you'll meet a lot of researchers, and they may ask you to be the advocate on their research proposal. So lots of funding organizations now are asking that the scientists have an advocate on the team. And, you know, you can bring a lot to the table there. As a patient advocate, you can say, well, wait a minute, guys, do you really need to do 3 PET scans? Because you know they take all day, right? And, you know, wouldn't 2 be good enough? And that kind of thing, they don't think anything of that, but we know how much that matters, you know, so you can bring a lot to the table for that kind of thing.
Can I just make a plug? If you're in California, the California Breast Cancer Research Program requires advocate involvement in anything that they've done, and you can sign up on their website to be on their list of patient advocates who would like to be involved in research.
Right, so for the recording, that's the California Research. The California Breast Cancer Research Program requires patient advocates for all of the proposals that they fund. So,
and you can sign up to be one,
cbclp.org. Okay. All right, we're recording up here, so we want to make sure we get that in. Okay, and then of course, all of your favorite organizations always need money. So if your thing is fundraising, that's a great way to advocate, because everybody needs more of the cash to do their work. So let's see if I wrote any notes on that. Yeah. Other opportunities is, you know, there's a lot of messaging out there as well, and you can bring some experience to the table, for example, with communications put out by your health department. A lot of materials put out by cancer centers or in screening centers and so forth. Sometimes it's downright hurtful, implying that you know, as long as you do things right, you're going to be okay and you're not going to metastasize. Other times it's just misleading. You know, I live near the Naval Academy, and every year they put up a banner. I still haven't found out who's doing it. And it says early detection is a cure. And come on, guys, it's not even your best protection, and it's certainly not a cure. And you know, that kind of messaging, it perpetuates falsehoods or hurtfulness in some cases, and you can play a role in correcting some of that as well in your community. So that's another opportunity for you. So that's all I have prepared, but I absolutely would love to answer any questions or talk about anything else that you would like to know about. So with that, are there any questions? Yes. Go ahead.
To be an advocate in general, do you have to get training, or is it just for that one agency that does it, the training?
You do not have to have training.
Okay.
You absolutely do not have to have training. You are an expert already in breast cancer.
Even if you don't feel like you are.
You are. You really are.
I think my first question kind of builds on hers of, I think there's strength in kind of being associated with an organization, so this consistency of messaging, as I think METAvivor recognizes and joining with others. So similar to her question of if you were going to do advocacy in your own state or whatnot, sort of what are the limitations around, saying you're advocating on behalf of an organization or kind of associating yourself with that organization, and is that varied, or what's your guidance there?
So the question is, what are the limitations with advocating in your hometown and associating yourself with an organization who is involved in that issue? And I think that's going to depend on the organization. So with METAvivor, we've established some training parameters and giving some examples of things we would like you to not say or that we suggest that you could say. For example, we all have a lot of strong opinions about some other organizations in breast cancer. We try not to say negative things in public appeals like advocacy in that regard. So I think it really depends on the agency you're aligned with, and I think the good ones all will let you know what those parameters are.
And second question, if I can.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm professionally have a background in legislative and policy analysis. So I was curious of, I know you're supporting the right to try, but more details of that, of concern of that it would drive up costs of the healthcare system generally, having a bunch of patients wanting to have access to things that aren't really proven yet. So as personally sitting here with metastatic cancer, sure, I want to be able to try things, but wanting to solve the problem for the population. I'm personally not quite sure, but I don't know much about that. I'm wondering if you might have information on kind of what those parameters are, or thoughts around.
Right. So, there is some opposition to right to try, and I venture to say that none of those people have a terminal illness. And certainly being terminal gives you a focus and a point of view on these things. So one thing about right to try is there's no mandate. Your insurance company doesn't have to cover it, and the pharmaceutical company doesn't have to provide it. So from my perspective, it's removing barriers. It's not going to make anything happen. It's going to allow better access. And when you're terminally ill, it is all about access and trying something else. And, not everybody wants every drug to get another month or two. But I always point to the young mothers, and there are many of them here who are metastatic. And by golly, they, for the most part, want the extra 2 months. If that's going to get them to the point where they can see their baby walk. 2 months can be a really big deal. And if trying something that's been phase 1 approved might do that, then I just can't say that's bad, even if it costs money overall. So I'm very much in favor of that, as many of you are.
And you have to be really careful too, because I have like 10 years in the pharmaceutical background for a state agency in Ohio, and if you shut out certain medications from basic use, then you're never going to have the ability to say, okay, well, I can choose what I want. So again, it goes back to the tiered, okay, you have to try this, or you have to try this. And so it's more about healthcare control, and as far as medication
That's right.
having
That's right.
someone
And you
who
will
knows
hear
that.
those arguments, and that's where
Yeah.
bringing your personal story to the table makes such an impact on these issues.
Yeah, and it goes back to like that ties into the Affordable Care Act, because if you get to the point where you're having people sitting in a room making a decision about health care for a patient that they don't know, then you're going in a direction where you're going to make choices based on cost rather than making a choice based on health care. And that goes to the issue like, okay, so my grandma's 70 and so her life has been lived, so you're going to let her die because it costs too much? And so that, I mean, that goes to the point of what is important to us. I think every person matters, and just because you don't have we need to figure that out.
That's the point of a
yeah.
larger healthcare system, more access, et cetera. I think it's the same challenges looking at
So we had another question in the back.
Actually, I just wanted to make a comment. When you are advocating on behalf of an organization, I think the main thing is to stay on point, stay on message. Don't put any personal biases in it or any of that. You have to be consistent with what the organization is saying if you're representing.
And staying on point is pretty important because you've got 30 minutes typically in these meetings to get your key three across and your leave behind message. So you need to say it more than once to make sure that it sticks, and they really understand what you're after. Yes.
So I came in late. It's your fault. So does METAvivor help you? I don't know. What does METAvivor do as a? I don't know what.
Okay,
do you
well, I'll
guys
tell
help
you.
train people
Yes, we
to-
do.
okay.
We do. So most of you know our main thing is funding research, but in advocacy, we have a legislative agenda for 2017. We constantly revise it because things are constantly changing, and we have training sessions and events and things that we ask you to do. So if you choose to advocate with METAvivor, we will say, we have a call to action. We want you to write your congresspeople about this, and these are our key three that we want you to ask for. So we try and give you all the tools you need to be effective for the things that we all want. So we do have a Hill Day coming up in April. If you're able to come to DC on April 4th and 5th, we're doing this in conjunction with the timing of AACR because all the researchers will be in town. So we're trying to pair researchers and patient advocates together to go visit their congresspeople and say we need more funding at NCI. Yes.
I'm a former Hill staffer, so I wanted to sort of give a couple sort of tips. One is I wondered if you had your leave behinds online, so if anyone is having a meeting in a local level, can they just get them and pull them off and then take them to a meeting?
We don't right now. We did have it available for our last Hill Day. We'll put something together before our April 4th and 5th.
And the next thing is that if you're going to tell your story in a meeting, also write it out like 100 words or more, and then leave it behind. So that way, if the person is like trying to remember your story, like they remember bits and pieces, but you want to make sure they don't skip the detail that you really care about, then leave that behind. And the third is that if you write to them from a distance and you write into your member of Congress, to do two things. One is make sure to include your zip code so they know that you are a constituent, because if they don't, then they'll just be like, we have no idea where they're from, and they'll disregard it just because they have so much volume, they need to have some filter. And then also, if there are talking points, make sure you customize it, because if members of Congress get so many letters that if they get 300 letters that are exactly the same, they'll consider that to be one letter. Just in terms of like issues and opinions, so you want to make sure that yours is different enough that they don't put it in the block with everyone else's.
Again, the personal story makes a difference. Yes.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the same. I've also worked on the Hill for a few years, and it was my first job right out of college. I was assigned healthcare for my boss, and I had no healthcare background, which is very common on the Hill, right? And so when you go into these meetings, if you're in DC or if you're in the district office, I think ask first, how long have you been covering healthcare, right? And they might say, you know what, not that long. If you say, okay, great, I just want to give you a little primer on what I'm here to talk about, and then make it personal who, again, may never have heard of any of this, is really going to sort of be captivated by you. And then offer yourself as a resource. So again, leave all that
Right.
follow-up and then say, call me, email me. If your boss has questions about this, I'm happy to talk him or her through further. And say, use me as a face for this, because I think that's another thing where, again, these decisions get made in Washington. It's this beltway mentality. Everyone else is thousands of miles away, and they're getting, so a lot of the time these funding decisions are getting made late at night, and they're going through line by line by line on these appropriations bills, and it is coming down to, unfortunately, a lot of it's just like money, right? And so, especially on the research side of things, if they have a face to remember, oh wait, this is this person, this is how this is impacting this person back in my district, a lot of times they'll go to the floor and they'll actually use these anecdotes. I heard from Kelly in my district, and she came in and she told me she's been living, for XYZ number of years, or it's costing her this much money. Those are the stories that then get picked up, sort of, a lot of times they go viral on social media. Another thing you can do is tweet your member after you meet with them or their staff, like at Representative so-and-so, thank you for meeting with me, thank you for making this a priority. Keep doing that, right? Keep it up, get your friends, get your community to do that, because those are the kinds of things, if they also kind of feel like they're being thanked publicly for something, they're more likely to support it.
Yes.
And tied into that, last year asked for a meeting. I'm from around here locally, and I contacted my local congressman, and I met with his, I don't know the official title, but the woman who runs his local office. And I did not know all of these things, so I think I just left my card. But I had 10 minutes with her, and I said, this is my story, if you ever need anything. And they just called me on Thursday night, and I am speaking at the town hall on Monday with 2,000 people to tell my cancer story and hopefully make some change. So it's not a fantasy.
It really works. Yes.
Hi, first off, amazing experience in this room for the pharmaceutical and the
Yes, I
know.
know.
I had no experience unless you need a criminal defense attorney. Then I got I was wondering if METAvivor or any of these other, and this is on the issue of the right to die, if they have sort of the sample legislation or the uniform sort of bills that have been passed in others.
Compassion and choice is all over that
Right.
issue. That is their thing.
Compassion.
Yeah, and they're active in every state. They've identified the states that they think they can move the needle. Maryland was one of those. We're not anymore. DC passed it recently, so yeah, they're your go-to people on that issue. METAvivor hasn't taken a stand on that one. I've thought about doing a survey to see how people feel, if they want us to do that or not. A lot of people are religiously opposed to this, and it's such a personal thing. We kind of feel like we've got so many battles already. Are we ready to make waves on that one? That people are. It's so touchy.
For me, it's and I don't mean to interrupt, but for me, you have a right to refuse medication, and
Yeah.
And
well,
I can have a doctor, an oncologist is going to prescribe me any sort of pain medication or opioids or OxyContin as much as I want. So so I don't understand why. Like when I decide, and I firmly don't believe that I'm ever going to die. So it's not a thing where I like dwell about dying. But when it does come to the time where I want to say like I'm out, I should have the right to do that and not be.
I think a lot of people who are metastatic agree with you. Yeah,
So,
yeah. I personally worked on that issue in Maryland, as I said, and it's something I feel strongly about as well. So, do we have some more? Yes.
You spoke about the state issues, and you talked a little bit about finding the right, analyzing the political climate. Not all of us are necessarily good at and have all the information to do all of that in like a Google search. So is there a chart on like what the issues are, like what states that it has been, that it is passed in?
So, we're not that, not at METAvivor. We haven't developed that. We haven't had the resources to develop that. But a lot of the niche organizations have, like the Right to Try people. I'm trying to remember their URL. You could Google it and find it quickly. They have a breakdown by state. Compassion and Choices has a breakdown by state on their particular issue. We at METAvivor were really more focused on our federal agenda, while also trying to train you guys to do similar things in your states. We don't have the resources in every state. We just 100% to research. We just, we don't have it. So we have to have sponsors for all this stuff, and we're not there yet. Oh, but we are. I will tell you, we are bringing back C2C. This time it's going to be C2C for Advocacy, and it's not going to just be a 6-week thing. We're going to be doing events continuously for a period of time, and it's really going to be a training platform, and bringing this advocacy training message and expanding on it and talking about messaging and working in your state. So we're going to be developing those materials and bringing them around to everyone.
Is that C2C like SEA?
Right. So the original C2C, if you don't know, some of you are newbies. C2C for MBC was in 2015, and we rented a van and wrapped it and drove it across the country and visited all the research institutions that we funded, and did different events, some fundraising events, some information events, all across the country. So.
So are you going to drive a van again?
Not if I can help it. That was pretty grueling, I must say. My partner, we were doing it two by two, and my partner landed in the hospital right before we were set to go, and I had to do it by myself.
You should plan the same thing, but have stops along the way and have all of us
Relay drivers?
Yeah,
batons,
Yeah, okay.
that'd be fun.
And
And then you can do videos in the car, and you talk, through your story.
Very cool.
It's getting trendy.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Any other questions? Yes.
It's more of a comment. I'm with a patient organization that's based in Canada, and I just have a recommendation where we've seen, obviously our healthcare system is very different, but where we've been able to affect real policy change is where patient advocates are coming together with the patient organization and really tackling in a very focused way a key policy issue. So I would really recommend any patients in the room, yes, become self-advocates, tell the personal story, but if you can align yourself with an organization that's already well-researched the issue and have the resources to not just tell you what the ask is, but a few key recommendations that's going to advance that policy change,
Mm-hmm.
that's where we're seeing success in Canada with actually improving access to treatment.
Right, and for METAvivor, our key 3 right now are these top 3 right here. So we do have some materials at our table downstairs with our agenda write-up for the key 3, and information about joining us in DC if you're able, April 4th and 5th. And if you sign up, we have a sign-up page down there online where you can say, I'm interested in doing this in my home state or writing letters, and we'll include you in the the email, the materials we send out, and getting the things on the website and so forth, the leave behinds. So, yes.
Do you guys have a booth downstairs?
We do, yeah,
Okay.
we're downstairs.
Okay.
We got our t-shirts today, they finally arrived, so if you're looking for a t-shirt, they're here now. Yes.
One more question.
Sure.
Is it more effective to partner with your oncologist or your health provider? Does that add any sort of when you're approaching your legislator or someone else?
I think it depends on the issue. I think you're equally powerful as a voter as your doctor is. And like I said, you are experts. You really are. Yes.
Yeah, I heard somebody talking about, telling the story and asking them, what their background is. I know when we came in October for the one in DC, we asked each one that we met with, we asked them, how are you connected to this issue? And it was interesting because they spent a few minutes talking about, their connection, whether it was their mom, like one of them it was their mom, one of them it was, their grandma. And so that I think clicked for them, and one of them was in tears by the time they were
Right, and that emotional thing, that emotional appeal is what makes them remember you. And that's part of establishing a relationship. So, you know, when you do follow up, you can remind them of that. And a lot of times you're going to have to do this year after year because it doesn't go through. So you have to go back the next year and do it all over again. And so, you know, over that process, you develop a relationship, and I think that really does matter. So, anybody else?
Can I ask you where your town hall is? Because I'm from the Bay Area.
All right.
Oh, it's Congressman Huffman's town hall at the Marin Civic Center.
Okay.
Monday, 12 to 2 p.m. Good luck.
Well, thank you all very much for coming.